So, a few times on this here channel, I have mentioned how I very, very, very much dislike the remake of Mulan that Disney released in the year 2020. And I will talk about that because today I am going to discuss exactly why I loathe that movie and why it is my least favorite film of all time. And the reason that I am smiling right now is because I am attempting to keep it a little bit civil before I inevitably get a little bit worked up later. I probably will. So, yeah, I really, really, really hate this movie. I've given my thoughts on the original Mulan. I think it's great. It was in my top 10 Disney movies of all time, and it still is. I don't know why it would change, but it did not change. Yeah, it's a really, really, no, not really, really good. It is a great movie. So when I heard that it was getting remade, I didn't get why, but I don't really get why any of Disney's movies are being remade. So then I heard that it wasn't going to have Mushu or any songs. And honestly, that's not a bad idea. And they said that it was going to be like a more mature telling of the story. It was going to be more big, more mature, and more epic. All that sounded very cool to me. The story of Mulan being treated in a more less Disney-fied way. That's not a bad idea. I heard they were removing Li Shang, and I didn't get that. I read somewhere that the reason for that was because they didn't want romantic feelings between a superior and the subordinate, which is I kind of get it, but I don't know, that doesn't seem like a reasonable idea. But trust me, it is not the worst thing about this movie or the worst idea it had. So let's begin with the new characters or new versions of characters. I'll talk about Mulan last because I have lots to say. So most of the translated characters are kind of just boring versions of their animated counterparts. The mom, the dad. Well, actually, the dad is probably the best actor in the movie. He's not that terrible. The Emperor is he's pretty bad. I haven't seen Jet Li in anything except this, which is kind of sad. But I don't know. I'm aware that he's a very respected martial artist. So yeah, I don't know. Jet Li plays the Emperor, by the way, if you weren't aware. There's also versions of not Lee, Ling, Yao, and Qian Po, Mulan's army pals from the original film. They're reduced to side characters who all have the same personality, that being misogynistic buffoon. And sure, the three guys in the original were misogynistic buffoons, but they had things beyond that still made them likable, despite being misogynistic buffoons. Oh yeah, the version of Chi Fu in this movie I don't know if he's even supposed to be a version of Chi Fu because he's kind of just a man who stands at the Emperor's side and says things on occasion. I don't know. And the villain in this movie is stupid because as generic as I've heard many say that Shan Yu is in the original Mulan, this guy is infinitely worse. He doesn't really have a clear personality. He has a clear goal, that being to murder the Emperor because the Emperor murdered his father, but that I don't know. And he's not memorable. He's not fun. He's not menacing. He looks ridiculous. Why does he look this way? He looks absurd. I can't take him seriously. And oh yeah, there's some like needless character additions. Well, they split Li Shang into two different parts. Uh, this commander dude played by Donnie Yen and a love interest for Mulan, who has no chemistry with her at all, and vice versa. And the two of them, they, I, I mean, I think it's supposed to be romantic chemistry, but there is no chemistry to be found at all, so he's useless. Donnie Yen, I feel like he was maybe kind of trying just a little bit, but I really can't tell. He just didn't really. I don't know. I like Donnie Yen. I just don't know if he was like super invested in this part. He didn't really seem that invested in this part, but to be fair, with a script this terrible, I don't know who could possibly get invested into it. And then we get, oh, wait, no, not yet. Not yet. There are some, like, new characters that were added in for no reason. Mulan has a sister now, who you could pretty much Photoshop her out of the movie, and the only thing that would change is, maybe the scene with the matchmaker would probably be a little bit awkward, but it would look a little weird if Mulan was just kind of whispering to herself at one point. But she has no reason to be in this movie. For one, doesn't have personality. For two, she doesn't do anything except cause the whole accident with the matchmaker, which they could have had Mulan do if they hadn't completely butchered her character. But I'll get to that. There's also this witch lady who's like, what does she do? Her powers don't really make sense. I mean, well, they do. She can turn into a bird, or she can turn into a whole bunch of birds, because that's such a brilliant ability. Just, oh, jeez. So they try to force this connection between Mulan and this witch. Oh, by the way, good job on trying to make your movie more realistic and more mature by putting a witch who can turn into a bird or a flock of birds in this movie. Good job on that. Yeah, great decision. Yeah, so they try to force a connection between her and Mulan, and it's like the witch is like, hey, we're the same, you and I. Aw, shucks. But nobody will let us be who we are. And it's just so forced and lame. It's not a bad idea, but it's just, why is it here? It doesn't need to be there. See, I don't really have an issue with Shan Yu in Mulan, because Mulan is not a story that really requires a villain with a deep personal connection to the hero. At least I don't think it is. And then they just went and added this villain with a personal connection to the hero. And then she sacrifices herself for Mulan at the end, even though she's only met her like twice. One of which she was taunting her for lying to herself, and the other of which, this doesn't really make sense, she was like, hey, be who you are, girl. I don't know. So, yeah, on top of that, it's not a memorable character. She, like so many in this film, doesn't really have a personality. She, like, I think she impersonates the Emperor at one point. Which, oh yeah, she can also turn into humans, apparently? What? Why? I don't get why this witch is in here. She doesn't really add much to the story. She doesn't really add to Mulan's character arc, because let me be clear here. Mulan does not have a character arc in this movie. Why is that? That's a great question. Okay, so let's talk about Mulan here. For one, the performance. It is the worst performance I have ever seen. This actress, I don't think she ever moves her face. And I think she raises her eyebrows a couple times. She maybe does like a bit of a sad crying face. Maybe when the witch maybe I'm thinking of something else. No, I think I'm right here. I don't know. I think she maybe moves her eyebrows a little bit in order to look mildly not disturbed, mildly sad. Maybe when the witch dies. Who knows? But other than that, nothing. Blank slate. This is the definition of a blank slate. She has no expressions or emotion to her face. She does not move at all. Like when she's trying to make big decisions, when she's going to leave home, she's just putting on the armor casually, putting on the helmet, doing the sword thing, and then leaving. When they discover that she's a lady, which she causes, I'll get to that later. She's just sitting there on her knees, and she's like, I would rather be executed. She does not move her face. She says that she would rather be executed, which you would think she would deliver with some sort of passion, but no, she doesn't move her face at all. And on top of that, she kind of has a bit of a monotone thing going on. She doesn't really deliver any lines with any emotion whatsoever. It bothers me because it's such... It's not just the performance, though. The writing for the character of Mulan is so utterly bland and awful. This is a character that literally has no flaws. Disney, in order to make this a more mature and realistic telling of the story, they gave Mulan superpowers. They gave her strong chi. So now she's a magical ninja warrior by the time she's 7 years old, which doesn't make any sense. Why would you make Mulan know everything? The point, the crux of the original story was that Mulan was clumsy. She was goofy. She was kind of aloof. She was well-meaning, but she was bumbling, that's for sure. This Mulan, she doesn't do anything wrong. Ever. The only thing that she needs to work on is expressions. But still, she doesn't cause the thing with the matchmaker. She balances 5 teapots on various places. She holds her foot upside down, suspended in the air. And she holds ones on her head, on her hands, probably on her back. And then the only thing that goes wrong is that a hairpin or something slips, and her hair falls in her face and gets in the way, so she drops everything. I think that's what happens. This doesn't make sense. So instead of training and getting better Mulan should do, she knows everything already. So it's where's the struggle? Mulan struggles. As a character, she's supposed to struggle. She's helping her father out with the war. She could just win the war herself. She could go out on the battlefield. She could slay the bad guys in them. I don't remember what they're called. Rorans or something. I don't know. She could do that herself. She almost dies at one point. And I know she did that in the avalanche thing with the original. That's just good thinking. She didn't do that. The mountain did that. She didn't slay anybody. The mountain did. Why would you have Mulan, a character that is known for working hard and trying to get better at fighting so she can assist her father in the war, or so she can take her father's place in the war, excuse me. Why would you have that character turn into an emotionless superhero who doesn't do anything wrong and already knows everything there is to know about everything except how to move your face? It doesn't make any sense. And it goes completely against everything that the original was trying to do for Mulan as a character. It makes the message of the movie really confusing and muddled. It makes the witch look like a moron because it's like, the witch is like, hey, everybody won't like you because you're different. What? Okay. And, like, there are different people telling Mulan at different points in the movie, hey, you should control your power, when she could literally just go out and win the war on her own. And there are other people telling her, use your strength, use it. And then she does. And then the dumbest thing happens in the middle of this movie when Mulan thinks, I'm not being true to myself. Okay. Look, self-expression is important. It's very good. It is a good thing. But maybe hold back some stuff about, like, if you were hiding your identity because you won't get killed. Okay. Mulan is a lady. And in this setting, ladies cannot join the army. So what does she do? She dresses up like a guy. Makes sense. But then, like, there's a point when they're training, in the training sequence, when they're doing this thing called loyal, brave, true, and then Mulan, like, stops on true, and even though the actress doesn't express this at all with her face, it's clear that she's thinking, I'm not being true to myself. Oh no! And then, like, the witch is taunting her about it. You're gonna die being something you're not. Boo on you. Except if she says that she's something she's not, she will die. She will get killed. She will be slain because she's... This doesn't make any sense. Like, it... Again, self-expression is fine, but not if it's going to get you murdered. Unless it's... Okay, if you have a good reason, then maybe. If you really care about what you're doing, then maybe. But there's no signs that this person cares about anything. So yeah, the story to this movie makes no sense. The message doesn't make sense. It's all confusing because they butchered this one thing about Mulan, that she is not perfect. Why would you do that? Why would you insult people in general, not just a specific group of people, by making a character that has no flaws? Why? Modern audiences don't need someone who's just good at everything. Make a character with flaws. That's what's interesting. You know, okay, older versions of Superman, like in some of the comic books, he doesn't seem to have any flaws. But, like, now what makes Superman interesting is certain moral dilemmas. You put him in situations where it's like, oh, wait a minute, what's he gonna do? What's gonna happen here? That is interesting conflict. But nothing like that happens with this version of Mulan. She just kind of stands there as the block of wood that she very clearly is, and just, she does these ridiculous things because she wants to be true to herself, even though being true to herself in this scenario will mean that she would die. And of course she doesn't actually die, but it doesn't make any sense what they're doing here. And it ruins the message of the original movie. And even if you don't compare it to the original movie, the message, it still doesn't make any sense. What is it trying to say? Is it trying to say, like, oh, you can be great at everything if only you wake up perfect? That's the lesson Disney is trying to teach kids with this movie. You have to be perfect if you want to do anything. That's just, why would you do that in the year 2020? This was less than 2 years ago. Why? I hate this movie. I'm not done either. Oh no. The editing in this movie is atrocious. It like does this jump cutty thingy, screaming in your face every millisecond, like that. It just keeps cutting. It doesn't stop. It never stops. But aside from what I just said about Mulan, one of the most annoying things about this movie is the action. How cool was the action in the first movie? How cool is the action in, like, big blockbusters nowadays? Like, big action spectacle movies. No matter how much CGI those movies have, some of the action is very, very cool. Disney itself is good at doing action. The MCU has some phenomenal action sequences. Eternals has some cool action sequences. Shang-Chi, Black Widow, Spider-Man, No Way Home. And like the TV shows as well. But beyond that, this action is so bad. For one, it does the jump cut away from everything, and it just makes it so confusing because it's like, slow down! Good man alive! Why would you cut this fast? It just makes it so awkward when you're watching a movie and you can't digest what's happening because it just keeps cutting away all the time. On top of that, the movements some of these people do don't make any sense. It's like they flip around on horses and then they can turn around. They could turn around on horses while the horses are going really, really fast. How does that make any sense? And they chalk it up to strong chi. These people have strong chi. They never really explain what chi is either. It's kind of just like the Force. Like Mulan is a Jedi in this movie, apparently. But another big problem is that it robs the story of any and all emotion that it ever had. And there was a lot of emotion in that story. It's an emotional film because it's a powerful movie. This girl who doesn't really know what she's doing sometimes, who's bumbling and clumsy, she goes off to fight in a war against her country's most sworn enemy to save her father from being killed or further injured. That's such a powerful story. But the specific scenes where these specific emotions are supposed to be portrayed, nope. They just zip right through them in order to have these long extended action sequences that amount to nothing because they are so inexcusably bad. Okay, so the scene when Mulan first leaves home, it takes like 20 seconds. Maybe not even. I haven't watched this movie since it came out. I don't intend to, and I won't do it. But yeah, it annoys because it rushes these integral scenes to the plot, and it doesn't make up for those emotional scenes in any way. The only emotional scenes that this movie adds in are one with the witch, which isn't emotional at all, because I talked about that earlier. They force this connection. It doesn't make any... I said this already. And there's the scene at the end with the love interest that I think is trying to have romantic dialogue, but again, no chemistry whatsoever. Two horrible actors saying horrible lines. The script in this movie is awful. To each other's faces with just there's no electricity whatsoever. Nothing at all. And then, like, oh yeah, the burn village scene. The one that's handled in such a mature way in the original movie. For a Disney animated musical that came out in 1998, it is handled so well. Because they take time, it cuts right from this really upbeat song girl was fighting for to this burnt crisp of a village. And the soldiers are just walking around and they're like, man alive, what happened here? And then I never got this as a youth, but a youth, but they show this entire field of this huge open space full of dead bodies. Disney's never done that before. They've shown bodies before, but this was just a whole other thing. Gee whiz, and they talk about Hunchback being dark. It is dark, but seriously, like, it's just the bodies. And then Chien Po walks up with Shang's father's helmet. And then Shang has to push through all of the emotion that would come with his father dying so he can continue to lead the troops and fight the Huns and protect the Emperor. That is powerful, emotional stuff. And then Mulan sees this doll, and we can only infer, oh my god, this little girl that they were talking about in the beginning of the movie died. She was murdered by these Huns. Gee whiz! And then Mulan she stands back, and as the rest of the soldiers just carry on, looking somber, and then she just sets the doll down in the snow. It's such a beautiful and effective scene. They don't need to say a whole lot. It's just portrayed through facial expressions and just through inference of the massacre that happened here. That was a very deep analysis. Not deep. It was a thorough analysis of that scene. And the scene in the remake, it's like they show a cluster of bodies that could be mistaken for just a cluster of armor. They show that, and it's like, wait a second, what are you doing? And then they just they talk about it afterwards. Movie, you missed the fundamental aspect of Mulan, that it was fun for a while, but it could be brutal. It could be harsh. There is nothing about this movie that is brutal or harsh. There's a couple death scenes. There is no blood. They show nothing. They shy away from the atrocities of war. When the original, let's reiterate, the G-rated animated Disney musical from 1998 didn't do that. They showed what it was like. I've never been in war, but they did it so well. They did it in such an emotional way. And this movie fails in every single way to do that. To do that one thing. So yes, in the eyes of me, the film freaking watcher, I believe that this movie is a failure in every conceivable way to represent both the story of the original and any emotion at all. And good action, and good writing, and good anything. Even the cinematography. It's probably the best aspect of the movie, but it doesn't work because so much of the shots are just either really, really quick or don't make any sense. There's people running up walls sideways, going full Batman and Robin in the 60s show, where they're climbing on the wall sideways. But they use a rope. These people don't use a rope, they just run up the wall because they have strong chi! I really, really, really detest this movie. I hate it with every fiber of my being. It is my least favorite film of all time. It is the most abhorrent mockery of anything that Disney has ever put out, and they've put out some pretty abhorrent mockeries of other good stuff before. I'll talk about that, probably, if I ever do a ranking of the Disney live-action remakes. So that'll be fun to talk about, because, well, this is my least favorite of them. By a landslide, there are some other pretty bad ones in there. But for right now, that is all. Share your opinion on the live-action Mulan. If you like it, that's fine. What I think is immaterial in your eyes. So I should have put a disclaimer in this video, but I'll do that in the description. It'll be in the description. It'll tell you not to watch this if you like the movie. If you like the movie, that's fine. So yes. Thank you for watching, and keep calm and watch out.